Okay, great. I just got a confirmation. Sorry that about the kind of staccato start. This is a new software. Apparently, it's the best software in the world, but clearly I'm not up to speed with it. So folks, we're here to talk about something which I think is of deep relevance to each one of us, taking you away a bit and asking you to zoom out and see the big picture, not taking you away from business, because I'm here to talk about the link of sustainable tourism to business. Of the many great quotes and sayings that we've been reading through the lockdown over the last 5 months, the one that stayed with me the most is never waste the opportunity that a good crisis presents. And I think we've got an opportunity of a lifetime out here to kind of make sure that when we rebuild tourism, we rebuild it right. So why does nature matter even? I think we can, all of us say, okay, the virus happened. Many of us believe this started somewhere in China and it's all due to China, and that's why it's imploding and hitting everyone else in the world, and that's it. But I think we need to go a little deeper, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. Over half the world's GDP today is dependent on nature. In fact, the travel and tourism industry is right up there. It's in the top 6 industries which have more than 50% of the supply chain, of their supply chains, gross value added coming from nature. So it definitely matters to us. The others for you, which would be curious, are the chemicals and materials industry, the real estate industry, the mining industry, and transportation. So we are highly dependent on nature. In fact, a very recent report by the World Economic Forum has talked about the global risks, and for the first time ever, all top 5 global risks are indeed linked to the environment. These are all. So first of them is in extreme weather events, which what we are seeing right now, I guess in California right now and other parts of the West Coast, failure of climate change mitigation and adaptation being the second, major natural disasters, major biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse, and finally, human-made environmental damage or disasters. All of these are there, and for the first time ever, all of the top 5 risks are actually to do with the climate and the environment. So we need to take care of nature so nature can take care of us. Moving on. Isn't the coronavirus a message from nature? It probably is. For those of us who don't know this, but really the cause of coronavirus is almost certainly which has come out of us tampering with nature. It's a zoonotic virus, which means that we have some way or the other got this from wild animals, wildlife, and this has happened. That opportunity to cross over and get into humans has happened because fundamentally we have tampered with the natural habitat of wildlife. This has been happening for a while. It's either illegal wildlife trade or destruction of natural habitats of animals, which has caused this and created the opportunity for these viruses to pass on from wildlife to humans. So it's very critical that we rebuild with nature and not against it at this point of time. I think this is a clarion call for all of us to nip such future pandemics in the bud. Otherwise, this can perpetually, I think, really ruin travel and tourism forever. This isn't just this one pandemic. Sadly, the climate crisis is not going away. The climate crisis is here to stay. In fact, it's even getting worse. Most scientists believe that the rapid melting of the Arctic due to climate change is actually going to release long dormant viruses, which are going to actually bring about further pandemics. These have been frozen in the permafrost forever, and they bring about viruses which modern humans have never grappled with. So it's a scary thought, and I hate to be, the person who's going to be the portent of doom, but the fact is that things are going to probably get worse. The hotel industry alone, which is so dear to us, actually contributes about 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Total travel and tourism, including aviation, contributes about 8%. while aviation alone is about 2.5%, the balance 5% actually comes from transportation related to travel and tourism. So therefore, there's a big responsibility for the travel and tourism industry to cut back on the impact that we are having. The International Tourism Partnership report has said that we have to cut down on from the hotel industry on our emissions by 66%. Carbon emissions will have to come down below if we have to move in the right direction. By 2050, this will be 90%. Those are huge asks, and we have to ask ourselves, how are these going to happen? I think it's fair to say that the future of almost all travel destinations, at least in India, which is most important for us, are at risk. I think we've all gone at some point of time or the other to hill stations, which are nothing but dumps for waste today and are starved of water very often. There's water crisis happening, and we said we don't want to come back out here. For me, personally, a recent trip to Manali was an eye-opener. 2 summers ago, I went to Manali for a friend's landmark birthday celebration who's got a house in Manali. And literally, my heart was crying. This was not the Manali I had gone to probably 5 or 6 times as a child, because it was a favorite destination for my parents and some of us friends. We would go there in college and in our younger days. This time when I went, I can tell you, right from Punta Airport, which is near Kulu, up to Manali, a trip which normally took an hour took me 5 hours. And this was all due to traffic. Finally, when we reached the area that we really wanted to walk in was Old Manali. I remembered the tall willow trees. And I can tell you that there was more traffic on the streets of Manali than there is in the streets of NCR pre-COVID times. And that's how badly we have ruined it. When you look at the river, each part of the river in the busy parts of Manali is dotted by some very morbid kind of bobbing going on with wires put across, people asked to zip line across the river and then being held in the middle of the river and popped up and down in the river. It's such a crazy sight, but that's what we've done to it. It's littered beyond what I can even mention. And this isn't only Manali. We've done this to Mussoorie, we've done this to Nainital, we've done this to Shimla, down south, no different in Ooty or in Coorg. So it's time we wake up. It's time we smell the coffee, and it's time we start changing. Our destinations are becoming warmer. The lakes that we used to go to no longer exist. There's water scarcity everywhere. Forest fires right now, as we're seeing again in California, floods happening, and all of this is happening because fundamentally we don't have a concept of carrying capacity. There are beaches right now in Philippines and in Thailand pre-COVID that shut down for a whole year to repair themselves. Can we even think of that happening in Goa? Perhaps not, but perhaps that's what we need to do. You need to go to in season to a beach in Goa to see just how crowded it is, and it's no fun any longer. So it's time that we actually take care of these destinations. Otherwise, even the destinations like Ladakh and Laytown is already crumbling with overcapacity, or Andamans, which we think are far away, are going to get hit very badly. So there's no better time than now for us to rebuild tourism, but to build it back in a better way. And this is based on a lot of research. We've done surveys with our travelers, and I'm going to quote from that. So MakeMyTrip and GoIBIBO surveyed several thousand of our customers, and we found that 43%, this was done in summer during COVID time, would prefer going to the hills and mountains away from the madding crowd. 31% would prefer beaches. Clearly, people want to be with nature. They don't want to go to big cities. On the other hand, Condé Nast Traveler India did a survey, and 65% of Indian luxury travelers said that they're willing to pay a higher price if their accommodation follows eco-friendly and sustainable practices. Then why aren't we doing this? What is holding us back from doing the right things, not only for our customers, but also for ourselves and also for our bottom lines? But sustainability is not only about the destinations. Sustainability is also about the local populace, about supporting the livelihoods who are there, and about making sure that their trades can continue to happen. Some of the recent initiatives that we have taken up at MakeMyTrip under our foundations are actually the promotion of rural homestays in India. through partnerships with state governments. We've done this in Madhya Pradesh and in Uttarakhand. And we are also promoting like a local holidays in itineraries and outbound destinations. And these are seen to become fairly popular. I'd like to talk about some of the opportunities that we have as hoteliers based on the insights that our guests are giving us, and therefore talk about building back better makes actually business sense for all of us. And that's why I said that I'm going to talk about sustainability, but I'm going to link it back to business, because otherwise I know very few of us are ready to go ahead and make those investments. Firstly, hotels are among the highest per square foot consumers of energy and water. This is around the world. They are right up there when it comes to commercial buildings. Some of it can't be helped. However, hotels in Asia generally produce more carbon emissions per occupied rooms than hotels in Europe and the US. Why is this the case? This is the case because perhaps we haven't invested in the kind of automation which we should. This is perhaps the case where we could do much more around energy saving. And therefore, there's an opportunity for us to save on utilities and boost profit margins. I think we've all heard about grey water. The term of grey water is water which probably is not right. It's not potable and not for drinking, but it can be used in many other places. I think we have to start doing that, because the water crisis is among the biggest crisis which is looming out there for us. We also have to talk about putting LED lights wherever possible. We also have to talk about automation. Even lights in corridors, which are activated by simple sensors, make for a huge change. Or something as simple as air conditioning switching off when you leave the room, even if the key card is left inside, which some travelers like to do, which is not responsible, or when windows are open, they have to automatically go off. For guests, I think the guests have said their insight is that during the pandemic, as we've seen in the previous slides, younger travelers are more environmentally aware, and they're actually very interested in the local experiences and the surrounding landscape. They want to do tours with locals. They want to go with a local and go fishing in that lake and understand how they do it and learn the art of fishing. They want to go on a walking trail and spend a whole day and make it up and trek up to a hill or a mountain and enjoy the view from there and take a picnic basket along, which could be actually prepared by local people out there, and they want to go with a local guide. So why can't we change guest expectations and also increase revenue while doing this, and most importantly, improve the livelihoods of people who live around the natural habitat of our hotels? And finally, some of you would be aware that investors today are mandatorily asking a question around ESG, around environment, social impact, and around governance, and saying, what are you doing around this? And it's becoming more and more important for them. So integrating ESG today principles in our business itself can help attract future investments. So it's actually good for us to do. I'd like to now take a few minutes only to talk about the kind of initiatives that the MakeMyTrip Foundation has done. The foundation is a few years old, but at least 15 years ago is the time we started thinking about our carbon footprint that we are helping cause when we sell tickets on airplanes, when we book hotel rooms. So we started asking our customers to donate a small amount of money, as small as 5 rupees, to help offset their carbon footprint. We contributed as well as a company and as individuals. And this entire sum was given to partners like Seva Mandir. We interviewed many partners when we found that Seva Mandir, based just outside Udaipur, was doing a terrific job of actually afforestation, of planting trees. And we started giving them this money, and we started planting trees, which now can be geotagged. So your tree can be geotagged that you helped plant. And I'm very proud to say that we have crossed over 12 lakh trees, or 1.2 million trees have been planted, largely due to the efforts of all of you, our customers, when you book a ticket. So micro payments can make a very big difference. We're also doing planting today in Ladakh, which can change the landscape of Ladakh. Here we are working with a local partner called HIAL, or better known as Sonam Wanchuk's Foundation, who's doing a tremendous job, and a new kind of planting, which is very relevant for cold deserts, which he's got from Japan, called Miyawaki Plantation, is being done. We funded a pilot, and now we are co-funding a very large amount of tract of land to be replanted, which can change the topography of Ladakh for the better and can avoid flash floods. Because when there are trees, the trees bind the soil and you can avoid flash floods. So that's something on afforestation. Most recently, and actually my most memorable trip before the pandemic was to the Andamans. We had been seeing the kind of destruction that plastic is causing to our oceans and our beaches and our seas. And we felt that we have to do something about this. Otherwise, it's not long before even the Andamans becomes no different from a beach in North Goa or Juhu Beach. So we went really deep and we tried to address the problem at the very root. And at the very root was that people needed drinking water when they were traveling to these wonderful islands of Havelock and Neil. We said, what if we can provide local water without a plastic bottle? And glass bottles, as we know, are very difficult to transport. Thankfully, on surveys done and with help from the local government, we found that the groundwater in Neil Island, we started with Neil Island, which was smaller and more manageable, was actually potable, was of drinking quality after filtration. And we worked with the best in the business. We worked with Tata Chemicals and we set up water ATMs. 3 water ATMs have been set up, which can give you water for 1 rupee a liter. We provide to our customers free of cost reusable bottles when you enter these islands because you can only go through a ferry. We can also get these bottles to other people entering and we encourage them with the right messaging that you can now refill this bottle with water on the island without having to carry plastic bottles. Thankfully, the government really liked this and the local government has said, including the panchayats, because we actually have employed their local people to run these water ATMs and also eco-friendly toilets that are solar powered. We've given a lot of employment out there, which is sustainable. And they came forward and they said that they will ban the use of plastic bottles or the sale of plastic bottles altogether in these islands. So we'll get to know this season. Hopefully, the islands will be open and travel will be back. But we've made sure even through the pandemic, they're being well taken care of. The water ATMs are functioning and they're fine. Of course, there are no travelers there right now. And it's an initiative we're very proud of. The team went there together. Our CSR team in the company volunteered and did a full day of blogging. And it was a very satisfying moment to actually get the Chief Secretary to come and actually inaugurate the water ATMs. In other interesting initiatives is in Sahasradhara, which we are trying to make a waste-free destination by actually working on a sustainable solution for solid waste. And here we are partnering with the Waste Warrior Foundation, who have done a tremendous job. I've also worked with them personally when we had gone just outside Mussoorie to work with them on some of the brilliant work that they're doing out there in the local areas. So we really encourage partners. We want to work with local partners. We need hotels. I can tell you a quick episode when we were doing this work in Udaipur of planting, just outside Udaipur. We were staying in a Justa property. And luckily for us, Ashish was there at that point of time. And he asked us, what are we doing? And he promised there and then to replace all plastic bottles with glass bottles in the hotel. And many hotels have already done so. And that's just a simple step, but you have to provide that alternative. And, you know, even filtered water we know is very clean, and if the filter is the right one, simple things like this can be used. And for people who want to buy a glass bottle, they could buy it. It could be expensive, but you have an alternative, especially for foreigner guests who would like to rather go for bottled water. That's fine, but for the others, you can provide filtered water free of cost. Finally, I'd like to conclude by saying that we have an opportunity to make travel better than ever before, better than it was before the pandemic. This is a crisis, but with every crisis comes an opportunity, and it's for us to rebuild so that those flamingos that we saw, the pink flamingos that we saw pictures of in Navi Mumbai, is no longer a rarity which only happens in pandemics. So that the view of the Dauladar range that people saw from Jalandhar is no longer something which happens only because the air is clean during a pandemic, but this is something where we can coexist happily. If we have time, I'll be very happy to take questions. Megha, if you have time, we'll take questions. Otherwise, I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and I hope our hotel partners will respond.
Thank you so much, Deep. I'm sorry we don't have the time for questions right now. We're already a little over.
No
But
worries.
thank you so much for being here today. It's indeed a pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. Have a great
Thank you.
conference, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.